All right, so hey guys, I want to talk a little bit about the end of the Roman Republic and talk about some people that were part of that. So we learned a little bit about this guy named Cincinnatus, who was probably Rome's best known Roman dictator. We think of dictators as being bad, but in this case, Rome had this system where sometimes they needed a dictator to come and fight an enemy, and usually they would give him like 6 months to become dictator. And with that, they could get all the fame and glory and the money and power that came with it. Rome was being attacked. They called Cincinnatus, who was this farmer, but who had also been in the army before. They said, he's the guy. They asked him. He said, yep, I'll leave my farm. Let's go now. He's offered 6 months to be dictator. It only takes him 2 weeks. He defeats this enemy, leads the army against him and wins. And they're like, all right, you can continue being dictator, for 6 months and have all the money and all that. He said, no, I'm just going to go back to my farm. And he says, that's basically my civic duty. It's a kind of important virtue that we value today too, that like you should be loyal to your country, do what you need to do, put your time in, fight for your country if you need to. Okay. Another important person in the world of the end of the Republic was General Marius. He's an army general. He becomes consul, which means he's one of the top two leaders in 107 BC. And he changes things. He took it from a volunteer army to a paid army, where the men, instead of just fighting for their country, were actually fighting for the money in the land that he would pay them. And he made this really strong, well-trained army of men who were not loyal to Rome anymore, but loyal to him. And he had to keep fighting and conquering more enemies to get more land to pay the men. And so that was a problem. The other thing is other generals began to do it, and the men became loyal to the general and not to their own country. And some of these generals actually fought each other for power. And so you had Roman soldiers fighting other Roman soldiers, which was bad. And eventually one of those Roman soldiers, General Sulla, will actually come and conquer and take over the government and this city of Rome. And this is basically the beginning of the end of the Roman Republic. And General Sulla's, he's a bad dude. And he will strengthen the Senate, kills everybody that's in there. He puts all his own guys in there, mostly military guys that are loyal to him. He weakens the Council of Plebes, which was the one of the councils that made the poor, the plebeian people, have more rights. He treated the poor, the plebeians, really horribly. And it's basically going to create 50 years of just chaos and civil war, Romans killing Romans. He dies, they believe, of a heart attack. And when he dies, it gives this last chance to try to save the Republic and bring it back to being a democracy, which it was. And so they set up what's known as the First Triumvirate. Having the word tri in it means three. It was an alliance of three people, three military leaders. One name was General Crassus, who was in Syria, which is like the Middle East. General Pompey, who him and his army were up in Spain, right, which was winning land for Rome up there. And then Julius Caesar, who was with his army up in Gaul, which is today France. And so these are all lands that are now being owned right by the Romans, because these three guys have gained that land. They're all powerful. They all have their own army that's loyal to them. Probably not such a great idea, because eventually, well, they could maybe go to war against each other for power. And that's really kind of what happens. So Julius Caesar, pretty famous guy, he's going to gain power, but here's how it happens. General Crassus, one of the three in that triumvirate, he dies in battle. So now it's just Caesar and Pompey. And Pompey was supposed to rule alone. The senators decided, hey man, we don't trust Julius Caesar. He's way too powerful. Let's just put Pompey in charge, and we'll tell Julius Caesar to just come on home. So they order him to come home from Gaul, but they say, don't take your army, because if you bring your army back into the city of Rome, it'll be like you're a traitor, like you're coming in to conquer us. They said, leave your army. Well, he doesn't do that. He takes his army with him, and they send Pompey's army to fight Julius Caesar, and Julius Caesar wins. Julius Caesar, by the way, is known to be just a genius on the military battlefields. And he beats Pompey. Pompey dies. And so now Julius Caesar comes back victorious. And actually, the people of Rome love him. He's won all this land and money and power for them. And he comes back as a hero. In 44 BC, declares himself dictator for life. Not for 6 months, but for life. And he fills the Senate back up with his own people. And so people love him, but there's also some people who are like, I don't know. Maybe this is a bad thing. Too much power. He does try to help the poor people, the plebeians. He sets up colonies to get land for them. He gives jobs to the poor. He even tells the wealthy landowners, hey, stop having so many slaves. You actually got to hire some of the citizens and give them jobs. So he's actually trying to help. Under him, also the calendar called the Julian calendar is created, and this calendar is very close to what we use today: 12 months, 365, and a leap year. So that's created. Well, eventually he is believed to be too powerful. They're afraid he's going to become king, and so a couple senators, guys who had actually been friends of his, Cassius and Brutus, set up a plan to kill him. They're afraid that this guy is too powerful. Like Julius Caesar has an affair with Cleopatra from Egypt, right? The queen there. He brings her back. They have a kid together, and they're like, "Look, he's trying to make her queen, and he's going to be king." And they just don't want this, and so they derive a plan that all these guys would, each and every one of them would stab him at least once. That way they would all be part of the plan. And so on March 15th is the day this happens. He had been warned by a priest or a fortune teller that hey man, something bad's going to happen. Beware the Ides of March. And the Ides of March is just another way of saying March 15th. And he's like, yeah, whatever, nothing's happening. But of course, on March 15th, the Ides of March is when he is assassinated. And he is stabbed to death on the very floor of the Senate floor, stabbed, killed by some of his very own people and good friends of his, just simply afraid that he's going to become too powerful. So that really is the end of the Roman Republic. After a few years of civil war, one of his relatives will become Augustus Caesar and becomes an actual dictator, and that ends the Republic. No more democracy. And so we'll learn a little bit about the Republic turning to an empire with Augustus Caesar. We'll learn that next week. Anyway, I hope you learned lots, and I hope you paid attention, and you guys have a great day. All right, see ya.